Memory transcription subject, Slanuk, Venmol Space Corps. Date, Standardized Human Time, December 5, 2136. Marcel made the decision to move deeper into the tunnels. The further we got from my blood trail, the less chance we had of attracting Arxur attention. The human did everything in his power to disinfect my wounds and mask their scent. It was stressful to realize the atrocities occurring above ground, as we camped amidst relative serenity. All it would take was one Arxur patrol to flush us out, scouring the sewers for hiding souls. Regardless, once the city was scraped dry, antimatter bombs would descend on it. Time was running out with finite certainty, we would be dead one way or another. General Burla seemed to be losing the motivation to carry on. If it wasn't for her cheery son, I think the Tillfish officer might have given up. Marcel fished into his pack, offering Burla a handful of berries. You haven't eaten in days. Let me guess, you don't want predator food? I want Vern to eat, the Tillfish general offered half-heartedly. Please give my portion to him. Not happening. Vern needs you at your best, huh? Damn it, human. We don't have enough. I forced a confident ear flick. Marcel packed plenty of food for his fat ass. I'm sure we have enough to go around. Mike fat ass, the human growled. I'm not the one who ate an entire can of Pringles during our board game session. I like salt. That was one time. The fact that it happened once is enough. I huffed in irritation. How could Marcel bring that up at a time like this? The Terran soldier extended his hand to Burla again, and she gazed into his hazel eyes. The insectoid relented to her hunger, snatching them away with a greedy leg. She wolfed them down in a single gulp, cramming them into her mandibles. Vernt crawled up Marcel's arm. Humma, what's a Pringle? It's a salty crisp made from potatoes. You'd like it, kiddo, the vegetarian replied. Can I have one? I don't have any now. But, I got gummy worms. Burla and I both gaped at the predator, who blinked in confusion. Why would Marcel be feeding invertebrate animals to Vernt? I was confused why an herbivore human was carrying meat at all. Perhaps my friend hit his head harder than I thought. Beyond the obvious moral issues, the cure would cause an allergic reaction within the Tillfish child. He couldn't eat flesh, even if his mother was okay with it. The insectoid general looked on the verge of tears. Please, don't feed him predator food, Soldier Marcel. I'm begging you. What? I got a vegan brand. The Terran pulled a segmented cylinder, which was the color of Zerulean blood. He started to pass it to Vernt, before realization flashed in his pupils. Shit, did you guys think it was an actual worm? It's just fruit juice and sugar. That's shaped to look like an animal. I grumbled. Well. Yeah, Marcel hesitated, before offering the gummy worm to the Tillfish child. Vernt accepted the spongy candy, and giggled atop the human's forearm. I knew my best friend tried to be mindful of predatory qualities, but even he had a difficult time realizing which facets might offend us. I accepted humans for the flesh-eaters they were. It was just jarring when my buddy reflected that cultural schism. It's clear my human was obsessed with bringing candy for the kids. I'm sure he was stressed enough making sure it was all edible. My buddy rose to his feet, and beckoned for us to continue our trek. I hopped onto his back, unable to walk of my own volition. Dino was dutiful, sniffing the ground ahead of us. Burla guarded the rear flank, ensuring that nothing snuck up from behind. The Tillfish general and the human had grown more comfortable around each other. Unfortunately, in the insectoid's case, weariness might have played a role. I kept my eyes peeled, and tried to stay alert. The tunnels split off in various directions. Marcel was charting an arbitrary course. The predator plodded along with determination, as much to avoid Burla's defeatism as anything. It floored me how he continued to radio the UN, despite an absence of responses. No answer was an answer of itself. We reached another fork in the sewers, prompting a decision. My ears picked up on growling from our left. Judging by Marcel stowing Vernt in his duffel, he heard it too. The human peeked around the wall, rather than running away as wisdom encouraged. I suppose he wanted to see if the Arxer had spotted us, and determine the possibility of us being tracked. God, Slanek. Those poor people, my friend murmured. I followed his piercing stare, and spotted a gray silhouette in the distance. It was crouched over a tillfish corpse, chowing away. Other Arxer rushed around with cages, trapping insectoids inside. The faint cries were almost inaudible over bullet pops, but they were the unmistakable registers of children. Pity etched itself onto Marcel's scarred face. I can't go on. Be billions of my people dead. Burla collapsed against a wall, buzzing hysterically. She stuffed a leg into her mouth to muffle the noise. My home. Everyone has abandoned us, and my son and I are trapped here. Children, that humans have left to die, taken as cattle. Marcel hesitated, before removing me from his back. He crouched next to the tillfish general, and wrapped an arm around her thorax. The human was gentle, pulling her head against his chest. Burla's eyes widened in alarm, but she allowed herself to absorb his warmth. I could see the proximity to the Terran set her instincts ablaze. The red-haired primate stood abruptly. Fuck it. Let's go save the kids. What? But you, Burla began. We're going. Slanek, stay here. I'll give you my sidearm. I thought about arguing with him, but his resolute scowl told me his decision was final. Clasping the gun between my paws, I huddled against the wall. The shallow sounds of my breathing mixed with the background noise. After waiting for Marcel to charge off to rescue the kids, I inched closer to his new position. My injuries wouldn't prevent me from picking off a gray or two. Dino bounded into the fray, eager to get his jaws on an Arxer. Burla had life in her steps too, as she followed my human's path. If we were doomed to die on Silas, what better way was there to go down? We could save kids from becoming a monster's plaything, we could help their parents defend them. The Greys were shooting at something, so some insectoids must be fighting back. I scooted along the floor, and drew close enough to see who was putting up a defense. Tillfish exterminators were mounting a desperate stand, spraying flames at the Arxer. Only 2 of them were still living, and they had been separated from the children. As much as I hated these bastards at the extermination office, this was a good thing they were engaged in here. What the? One exterminator gasped, as an Arxer was shot from behind. His compound eyes focused on Marcel, who was firing on the Greys. Humans? No, they left us. The tillfish predator killers looked terrified, but their flamethrowers steered clear of Marcel and Burla. Vernt's mother channeled her own fury, gunning down Greys at point-blank range. The Arxer backed away, shielding their caged prizes. The exterminator who had spoken before shouted to my human, and begged for the kids to be saved. I was surprised he would voice such a request. I guess the Terrans looked downright nice next to the Greys. Though, I wouldn't trust those tillfish not to torch Marcel the second this is over. The human lunged forward, and ducked behind a fallen Arxer corpse. My friend utilized the Grey's body to absorb incoming bullets. The peril he was undertaking perturbed me, but I was confident that this wasn't a suicide run. However, that changed as Marcel's eyes suddenly darted to his pocket. Amidst gunfire, was the vegetarian paging the radio again? The UN weren't coming to our rescue, tillfish children meant nothing to them. Have to help, I wheezed to myself. Move. It took painstaking minutes to advance, until I was almost to the conflict zone. My injuries were cause for absolute self-loathing. Why did I have to be a wounded liability? Hugging the sidearm, it took conscious effort to map out the battlefield. There were 11 Arxer total, following my friend's kills so far. That was a lot for one human and 3 panicked Tillfish to manage. Matters took a turn for the worse, as 2 Greys circled off down the tunnel. They were heading right for my position, and had evaded Marcel's notice. I could tell from their flaring nostrils that they'd scented me. If I distracted them for a while, that improved my human's odds. My forearms raised the gun, popping off 3 shots. Each bullet missed by a long shot, earning sneers from the Greys. One soldier licked its lips, and smacked the gun out of my paws. Absolute terror coursed through my veins, as its teeth hovered a hair from my throat. I was all too aware of my vulnerability, and my instincts were a suffocating fog. My desire was to scream, but I couldn't open my mouth. "You scared, stupid animal." The lead Arxer traced a claw across my throat, and pressed its other arm into my sternum. "A delicacy like you." A blur of motion appeared in my periphery. A brown ball plowed into the filthy carnivore at full speed, stabbing claws straight into its throat. The Arxer staggered away from me, while its knees buckled under it. It gave disbelieving gargles, sensing its life ebb away in a second. The creature clinging to its neck was a Gojid, and my savior looked deranged. The Gojid dismounted, locking his claws in front of him. He met the Arxer's challenging stare, and positioned himself between me and the monster. Those rich brown quills sported a pattern I'd know anywhere. It was one I'd last seen trying to execute my friend. Absolute hatred spurred me to my feet, and I screamed in a blind rage. I hurled myself at Sovlin's back, with anger granting me the strength to lunge ahead. The Gojid spines warded me off, but I barely felt the pricks. This monster treated my friend like an animal, placing a shock collar around his neck. The cruel captain inflicted agony for kicks, and disfigured him for life. The residual trauma still affected Marcel to this day, no matter how he tried to mask it. "The Arxer, you dumbfuck," Sovlin hissed. "You can do what you want with me after I deal with it." A gunshot rippled down the tunnel, a thunderclap that snapped my outrage. A bullet sailed through the back of the Grey's skull, and ended its life in an instant. The kill was courtesy of a Yodel, who looked pleased with himself. I didn't understand how either alien ended up here, but I was hoping the Gojid would end up in an Arxer cage. The Yodel chuckled to himself. "Too slow, old man." I dealt with it. Pained grunts echoed down the hallway, distracting me. Sovlin sprinted off before I could finish him, and the repugnant Arxer had taken my gun. Logical thoughts be damned, I'd execute that sadistic fucker even if he meant to help now. The level of hatred I felt for him was unrivaled. It was unfair that Earth let him off the hook for his unthinkable crimes. A limping human ambled down the hallway, and a series of curses ensued. Confusion took over, as I recognized Tyler's towering stature. The blonde Terran was taking ginger steps, while his teeth were gritted in pain. I had spoken to Marcel's friend over messaging services, after the Battle of Earth. Both of us shipped out of the system days later, and I hadn't heard from him since then. Why the hell is he here? Tyler was assigned to a ship. Did he crash? I wondered. More importantly, why the fuck is he with Sovlin? "Hey Slanik," the massive human grunted. "You rang?" I glowered at the lumbering predator. "What the fuck? What the fuck?" "I can explain. First off, I want you to know that I did kick his ass. Secondly, Captain Monahan personally requested me for my alien expertise, then placed Sovlin under my command. So really, it's her fault. I thought you were Marcel's friend. Why would bring that fucking monster anywhere near him?" "Because he was the best man for the job," the Yodel chimed in. "Sovlin's an arrogant prick, but we wouldn't have gotten to you without him." "Who the fuck are you?" "Onso." "Thanks for asking." Tyler steadied his gun, and limped a few steps closer. I picked Marcel's sidearm up from the sewer water, not wanting to be unarmed. My human had gunned down several greys, while utilizing his unconventional cover. The corpse shield helped him to press ahead. He was unwilling to let the Arxer captors get away. Burla had formed ranks with the Tillfish exterminators. The 3 insectoids were combining flames and bullets, picking off 1 grey at a time. 2 enemy survivors with the cages were retreating, and that forced my human to shed his corpse shield. Marcel needed to advance more quickly. That meant throwing caution aside. Sovlin rushed up behind him, and strained to catch the longer-limbed predator. The Gojit's cheeks were puffed out with exertion, but he wasn't slowing down. Was that monster trying to kill Marcel, this long after our escape from his ship? I didn't understand why Tyler violated our trust by bringing that spiky freak. A true friend would have done us a solid and executed Sovlin. Could have just slipped him some meat. Allergic reaction, and it's done. That omnivore cure might be good for something. Marcel, get down, the Gojit roared. The human slowed for a second, and that gave Sovlin enough time to tackle him from behind. I realized that the Arxer had set up a sentry turret. They intended to gun down anything that passed through this area after their sweep. The monsters activated the device, as they retreated past it. Bullets zeroed in any motion in an automated stream. Sovlin hugged Marcel's head against the shallow water, and shielded my human with his own body. Blue blood spurted from his back, as bullets clipped his spines. An entire row was ripped out, causing the Gojit to scream in agony. Despite the pain, he never wavered from his spot. As long as the duo stayed against the floor, they were below the turret's sightline. The Tillfish hit the deck as well, before they could attract the gun's ire. Tyler retrieved his grenade launcher, though he had minimal ammunition in tow. The blonde human balanced on one leg, and lined up his shot with careful precision. A projectile sailed down the tunnel, converting the turret into fragmented shards. Sovlin struggled to his feet, and extended a clawed paw to Marcel. Tears glistened in my human's eyes. I could see him biting his lip. The primate threw his hand into the Gojit's grasp, avoiding his gaze. The callous captain tugged my friend upright through sheer willpower. Blood was still gushing down Sovlin's back, but he wasn't stopping for first aid. Shit! We lost the fucking kids, my human growled. And you, I'm not even going to ask. The Gojit touched a paw to his bloodied back. I know you don't want to see me. No shit. Tyler didn't mention a thing about you, because he knew I'd be pissed. Fuck. Do you have a ship? Yes. Hey, exterminators. I'm sorry that the Greys took so many of the kids. You and the civilian survivors want to come with us, off this rock? The flamethrower-wielding Tillfish shifted. Yes, Predator. Your occupation was better than theirs. Okay. Get these people and my friends to safety, Sovlin. You do that, and I'll tolerate you for that long. Onso propped me up, as the rest of the procession made their way toward us. I still wanted a piece of Sovlin, but I couldn't get over the fact that he'd saved Marcel's life. I decided I wouldn't go after the Gojit until we were clear of Silas. Between the vegetarian's head injury and my blood loss, neither of us should be flying. The most important thing to me was my human survival. A universe without him was a dark place. If Sovlin was our ticket out, then so be it. Memory transcription subject, Glim, Venwell Rescue. Date, Standardized Human Time, December 6, 2136. Noah opted to give me some space once we returned to the facility. Despite my consent to speak to him, the Gaian realized I was confused about my feelings. The warmth of his arms lingered in my mind, along with the welcome promise that everything would be okay. Predators weren't supposed to have compassion. My extermination mentor taught me that their existence was a threat. A human knocked on my door, and peeked a helmeted head inside. I could tell from the broad shoulders and rich hands that it was Noah, checking on me. My instincts rekindled as he approached, but it was mixed with bizarre relief. Why was I happy that a deceitful hunter had come to visit? "Hi, Glim." The Gaian spoke in a gravelly voice, and seated himself on the edge of my bed. "How are you feeling?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "S sad. L lonely." "Ah, you missed me, huh? It's been a hectic few days for Tarva and I, but I'm happy to see you too." "Hectic, how?" "We conducted a military raid against an Arxur sector. Word is, human forces liberated millions of farm captives." "You are bringing them to Earth?" "No. The Mazics owe us, well, the continued existence of their homeworld. They're handling a lot of the logistics." As sensational as the story was, the Kolshians had spearheaded an attack on Kwa a short time ago. The Terrans repelled the offensive, and supposedly talked the Federation down from orbital bombings. Humans could be rather persuasive, but I found it difficult to imagine them opening a chat mid-battle. Regardless, President Cupo fawned over the United Nation in the aftermath. I read that the Mazics commissioned a statue of a Captain Janice Monahan in the capital. The humans protested this act, likely to maintain humble appearances. I flicked my ears. "Is it true that you're building colonies in their territory?" "Zhao has a plan to have functional settlements up and running by the end of the calendar year," Noah growled. "The infrastructure on abandoned Mazic worlds is a good start, even if it's not built for us. I'm surprised Cupo didn't offer to help you build from scratch." "Ah, he did. Get a load of this, those helpers showed up at a potential colony with antimatter bombs. They wanted to destroy the native ecosystem. Obviously, the humans they rendezvoused with got a bit riled up." "Why?" "Those Mazics were doing the bulk of the work, making it safe for habitation." "Please, tell me that's not the colony work you did." "Glim, you're too good for that." "Come again." "IW was a good exterminator." "Never mind. Before I ask what I came here to ask, how much do you know about our political situation?" The Gaians had solidified an unlikely coalition, and put the infamous events of a predator-refugee stampede, with explosions, to bed. The hypercapitalist Fissans and Nevics buried their rivalry enough to resupply the human fleet. The Takans were major contributors to Earth's manufacturing power as well. Their ambassador had been taken prisoner on Alpha over a sabotage incident, and that rubbed their brass the wrong way. There were some parties in the human alliance, like the functionally extinct Thafki and the distant Paltans and Sivkits, whose support was intangible. However, newcomers contributed enough to account for them. Neutrals like the Sulya-Naftali alliance rallied support, and flipped several non-aggressors to the Terran team. The occupied Harchan and Tilfish had their armadas co-opted, as part of their surrender agreements. "I get the gist of it. You have a small core of allies," I answered. "You would be better off, numbers-wise, if you could flip a few more neutrals to your side." Noah breathed a tentative sigh. "You're right on the money. We've identified a handful of non-hostile marks, mainly those who voted for a temporary truce against the Arxur. There were 107, but our interactions with the Greys turned many against us. The fact that you work with those demons is disgusting." "I don't disagree. Our attack on the Arxur sector might be the diplomatic fuel we need with the Feds. We convince them that we're gearing up for an eventual war with the Dominion." "And you think you can get more ships?" "Yes. A few individuals from species we're targeting as allies were liberated from this sector's cattle farm. We want to return them as a sign of goodwill. We'd like the rescues to be friendly to humans, and convince their governments we're different from the Greys." Perhaps this was all some long con by the Gaians to strengthen their military. Noah just outright stated his motives with the Arxur attack. It could be collusion between the two predators, giving off the appearance of enmity. Were the humans just using the liberated cattle to gain a diplomatic edge? Would they reveal their true feelings toward us once they'd smooth-talked the neutrals? White-hot anger scorched my chest. Ridiculous. You have no idea what the Arxer did to people like us. How are you going to convince them to trust another predator, let alone like you? I don't know. This is a long-winded way of asking you, but we want your help, the Gaian said. My paws adhered to the smooth helmet, and I pulled it up off his face. Sincerity swirled in his piercing eyes, which bored into my skull. Part of me hated him, for reminding me of the Grey's pupils searching for their next meal. How many other cattle would have helpless thoughts jogged by this face? Hell, the human's features were more unsettling than the Arxer's purely predator countenance. Maybe Noah really wants this to work, but he doesn't understand our trauma. After years of captivity, most cattle want nothing to do with them. Dedu, you know why they kept me alive? I managed. The Gaian's wrinkled lips curved down. I can imagine. I am so profoundly sorry. We found multiple DNA matches to you, from cattle raised in captivity. If you want to see them. Those are not my kids. I didn't choose to conceive them, and I don't want to look at those abominations. And don't tell me it's not their fault, because I don't fucking care. Okay. I'm sorry I brought it up. I just thought you deserved to know. Stop trying to be nice. Just because you Gaians show us a little kindness, that doesn't make any of your flaws go away. You're selfish to want those cattle to be your friends. You're selfish to want me to be your friend. Ambassador Noah was silent for a long moment, at a loss for how to respond. The human pulled his helmet out of my paws, and tugged it over his head. What an impeccable actor he was, if he was playing us all. The emotionless veil obscured his feelings, but I could sense his pained expression. The bulky predator rose from my bed, before marching toward the door with hasty steps. A twinge of guilt tugged at my heart. I'm sorry, Noah. I didn't mean it like that. No problem, the Gaian rumbled. I asked if you wanted me to steer clear of you, and you said no. I misunderstood. You didn't. What I meant to say was that we're damaged goods, myself included. It's difficult for me to be around you even now. We can't just forget what happened. And I can't make any cattle sing a predator's praises. You're right. The UN has no right to use you as a political pawn. What I asked was unfair, Glim. It was, but I'll do it. I'll try, and we'll see what happens. Oh, thank God. I should turn you down, but the Heisei situation's got Sarah in a rut. Maybe we could start with that small issue? Heisei won't even eat, we had to hook her up to N4. Why didn't you start with that? Take me there. The predator flexed his meaty fingers, in a way that seemed to beckon me forward. The back of his helmet spit my reflection at me, which I tried not to focus on. There were dozens of Gaians working with Venmal's staff, often conferring in hushed tones. The humans kept their masks on near patients, but I could see them in their full brain-melting visages. In break rooms. My surroundings looked vaguely familiar, as we passed across the linoleum floor. Noah tested the door handle, and gestured for me to enter. A masked Gaian was seated just inside the doorway, huddled against the wall with a laptop. Complex equations were on her screen, and she was typing away with a vengeance. A tissue box sat right beside the primate. That left the logical deduction that this was Sarah, the other caretaker. I'd seen the female human at the train station, with her puffy hair and softer features. Both twin beds sat empty, one had belonged to me before my escapade. Heisei, my fellow refugee who'd once run the Venmal Museum of History, was nowhere to be seen. It took me a moment to hear her scratchy breathing, hiding under the bed. Sarah, give Glim the rundown, Noah barked. The female human snorted. Not much to it. Heisei saw us turn our heads to look at her, then locked herself in a closet. I felt pretty terrible for adding to her trauma. I eyed the Gaian warily. UN never meant for us to find out the truth. If it makes you feel better, you can't have made it worse than Noah chasing me through the train station, shouting about his teeth. Canine teeth, the male predator corrected. It worked, didn't it? Sarah chuckled. Don't fret, I won't be replicating that with Heisei. I'd leave her alone, if that's what she wanted. But I can't watch her waste away like this. Right. What else have you done to her? I crouched next to the Gaian scientist, and ensured there was no Venlol blood residue on her suit. If she'd had a lapse and attacked, she wouldn't admit it. Heisei was lucid when I left. Something made her snap, don't start lying again. You have a dickish attitude, Glim, but I'd take that over how broken Heisei is. I got her to join a video chat, and she was speaking her thoughts then. She had me take off my mask, hasn't said a word since. Something must have made it worse. Recalling my own disgust to the sandwich-munching Gaians, I could understand why Heisei was appalled. Perhaps it was those unpigmented eyes, or the furless cheeks infused with the tinge of their own blood. It could have simply been that looking at a predator brought back Heisei's worst memories. That was a plight I could sympathize with, and was also why it was inane that Sarah had planted herself in this room. So you know she's upset, and you're staying around her constantly? I scowled at the predator, praying she wouldn't strike me down for my bravado. Why are you in here? Sarah closed her laptop. I did give Heisei space for days, but she was not eating or speaking. I thought maybe exposure therapy, just seeing that I wouldn't go berserk, might snap her out of it. Kinda like the exchange program. Those Venlol talked to Gaians for weeks before. They wanted to be there. Yes, I know that, but the principle. Get out. Get the fuck out of here. My stomach did somersaults, as it dawned on me how aggressive I'd been with the predator. What was I thinking, screaming orders in her face? This was provoking retaliation. I was certain the thought was playing at Sarah's mind. The human's breathing hitched, and she slowly rose to her feet. The laptop was tucked beneath her arm. While Sarah was shorter than Noah, she still loomed over me. The male human was lurking behind me, capable of piling on to his packmate's assault. I remembered the ease with which he shrugged off my blows at the train station. The Terrans could sling me around like a ragdoll, and unleash decades of combat mastery on me. For all I knew, mouthing off in their custody was a death sentence. The Gaians are going to put me back into my place. Pray don't get to boss around superior creatures. Sarah strode past me, helmet angled toward the doorway. I shied away from her, protecting my vulnerable areas. Noah glanced at me, before wrapping an arm around his packmate's shoulder. The female scientist ducked her head, and the predators vanished from sight. I gaped in bewilderment, amazed that Sarah just left, exactly as I told her to. My paws strode over to Heisei. I found the Venlol historian with her face pressed against the tile, and staring with unblinking detachment. It reminded me of Aunt Thyma's glassy gaze at the facility, devoid of thought. I knelt beside the bed, and reached out to intertwine my tail with hers. Heisei screamed, as she felt physical contact. No. Stop. Easy. It's me, Glim. I yanked my tail back, and lowered my head to the floor. Remember me? The one that got away? IT thought they killed you. Escape was a death sentence with T the Arxer. Listen to me, the Venlol out there are happy. These Gaians allow a decency quality of life, and they passed an empathy test. C cheated. Why do you say that? If you know something I don't, we need to make a plan. We need to play the game, Heisei. What did the Gaians do? I can't know what they are, the second I saw Sarah's face. Human. Terrible. Yes, their most common name is human. They told me too. They didn't tell me. I studied them, at the museum. Curiosity piqued my interest, and I wondered what exactly Heisei knew about our caretakers. The Federation had accrued evidence to support our extermination plans. Humanity's war-stained history wasn't one they tried to hide. What could they do more atrocious than being a predator and killing each other? What had this Venlil seen that was so horrible that it stuck with her post-captivity? Just breathe. You can tell me everything. I coaxed her out from under the bed, and squeezed her tail for comfort. What did you see at the museum? WL. I wanted to create an exhibit on humans that was about more than just their wars, Heisei explained. To the Federation, the Farsal archives were happy to send over unfiltered broadcasts. Those monsters act like us 1 minute, but they are vicious beyond comprehension. It's okay. They're not here now. Go on. Where do I start, describing pure evil? That was what my exhibit on humans was called, Pure Evil. I would think that title is reserved for the Arxer. The G-Greys don't pretend at least. Humans would talk about marriage and love, but I saw documentation of them physically beating the people they said they loved. They would talk about community, then talk about murderers on the loose for unfathomable crimes. They would say they loved nature, then mount animal heads on their walls. My eyes widened in horror. What? That's not the least of it, Glim. They treated their own kind like cattle throughout history, selling them, locking them up in pens, and forcing them to toil. Whether they eat us or not, they're prepping the infrastructure now. They already know how to run sapient slaves just like the Greys. But Noah isn't like that. The empathy tests. The empathy tests make it worse. They feel everything they say they do, then disregard that trait entirely. It makes them better manipulators, and that's why they evolved it. Do you seriously trust this, Noah? I leaned back on my haunches, thinking for a long moment. Heisei seemed lucid enough to me. She must have been dissociating around Sarah. If she'd witnessed humanity performing such depraved acts, that explained why the mask reveal sent her spiraling. The Venlil historian was willing to consider that a predator might be okay, but not this particular species. Wasn't that telling? Noah admitted that he wanted to use the cattle to gain military assets. How do you know he wasn't pretending to care about you? The fact that you didn't answer immediately means the answer is no, Heisei asserted. I twitched my ear. It means I'm not sure. Are you sure, that they uniformly deserve death? As an exterminator, you should have that answer. I'm certain that their presence is a bad thing, and they can't behave like a civilized race for long. There was at least a grain of truth in her claims, proven by the ongoing war with the Federation. Humans needed to suppress empathy to work with child-eating Arxer at all. It was difficult to trust a species that displayed all the right cues, then turned to predatory wickedness without warning. Nonetheless, Noah had been the only steady presence on my homeworld. He comforted me when everything I loved was gone. Maybe the Gaian was exploiting the fact that I had nothing left on Venlil Prime. That shrewd intelligence must have realized that my caretaker was the only sense of stability I had. I cleared my throat. I understand. You need to take better care of yourself, Heisei. You're making them pay more attention to you with all this. Why? What's the point of anything, with humans infesting our home? She hissed. If you're right about their intentions, and they decide us cattle are too much trouble, they'll just skip to the worst phase. We could eke out a few months of happiness, for millions of Venlil who've also suffered like us. That happiness is a lie. This only ends with our torment. It's kinder than the Greys, either way. Please, play along with this rehabilitation. If not for yourself, do it for the others. The female Venlil thought for several minutes, before mumbling a reluctant agreement. I eased her onto the bed, and strode out to find Noah in a daze. Ascertaining humanity's true intentions was my top priority. Everything Heisei discussed must be researched. What bothered me most was that amidst atrocities, the Gaians proclaimed their emotional sensitivity. There could be no explanation for that behavior. It would require calculation to determine whether to broach the subject with the Terran ambassador. Noah stated he was used to answering dark questions. But some subjects might cross the line. If the Gaians thought I knew too much of their history, that offer to help with cattle accommodations could vanish. The relative freedom I enjoyed now could be whisked away with it. The suicidal side of my brain wanted to spill everything to the dark-skinned human all the same. I desired for him to hold me in his strong arms, and tell me that everything was going to be okay. It was no wonder the predators had enraptured Venlil Prime with their charm. Even a captive exterminator like myself couldn't help but to fall for it.